Hello everyone. This time the U.S. military's Operation Epic Fury truly saw a rare, epic large-scale rescue mission, and today President Trump held another press conference. More details about this rescue have been revealed, making this legendary story where, to save a single person, the U.S. military established a base behind enemy lines overnight and spared no expense, spending up to $400 million, come into even clearer focus for the world. It truly deserves to be called an epic rescue in every sense. However, what many people did not expect was this epic rescue was actually forced upon them. The reason is simple. There was a mole inside the White House. The successful rescue of the pilot meant that Iran truly lost an extremely important bargaining chip. This immediately had a significant impact on the negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. That's why we saw Trump issue an unprecedented warning. And the contents of an unprecedented agreement, including the ceasefire between both sides, were also exposed as a result. So, is it possible for this agreement to succeed? After the red line deadline, will Trump really carry out his threat to massively destroy Iran as he said he would? And how did Iran respond to this? Today is April 6th, Eastern Time. I am Tang Jianyuan. Welcome to Genuine Talks. These are extraordinary times, and if you need timely and accurate information, it's very simple. Just subscribe to our channel. If you subscribe, YouTube won't necessarily push my videos to you every day, but by subscribing, not only will you be the first to know what has happened, but you'll also understand why it happened. All right, let's first talk about some of the many little-known secrets behind this rescue operation. Why do we call it an epic-level rescue? Based on today's White House press conference and numerous media reports, this time the U.S. military deployed special forces from the Army, Navy, and Air Force for the rescue. The operation was primarily led by SEAL Team 6 and the Army Delta Force unit that previously attempted to capture Maduro. It also included elements from other joint task forces, such as Air Force Special Operations personnel. There were even at least 2 Israeli Special Forces units involved in providing support. You could say that this operation was essentially a joint performance by the world's top elite special forces today. Of course, how many aircraft did the U.S. military deploy for this operation? Maybe you still remember Trump. Previously, he posted online saying that dozens of aircraft were used. Many people doubted it, wondering if Trump was exaggerating a bit. Let me tell you, the reality was even more dramatic than what Trump posted. The U.S. military deployed as many as 155 aircraft for this operation. This is a very specific number that Trump revealed at today's press conference. It included the use of F-35 fighter jets to provide suppression of enemy air defenses and escort missions. There were also a 10 Thunderbolt attack aircraft, which carried out prolonged and intense ground strikes against any Iranian troops attempting to approach the pilots. There were also MQ-9 drones, which provided continuous ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance over the scene, and repeatedly carried out precise targeted strikes on Revolutionary Guard convoys in the surrounding area. In addition, the U.S. military even deployed the B-1 strategic bomber. This bomber circled over the rescue area for an extended period, and together with satellites and multiple large drones, intelligence was gathered to create a vast, invisible protective network high above, beyond the reach of the naked eye. The entire aerial network included 4 bombers, 64 fighter jets, 48 aerial refueling planes, 13 rescue aircraft, and various other types of planes. This also included the 2 large transport aircraft that were destroyed, as well as the 4 Little Bird light attack helicopters they carried. So, in total, 155 aircraft participated. Moreover, according to a report published today by the Wall Street Journal, a very startling figure was revealed. The U.S. military deployed the B-1, which is a strategic bomber. During the mission to rescue the downed aircrew in Iran, it dropped a total of about 100 bombs in the combat zone, each weighing 2,000 pounds. These were massive, powerful bombs. They basically bombed almost the entire surrounding area. The airstrike targets included roads, positions held by the Revolutionary Guard, as well as personnel in the vicinity, including Basij militia camps and so on. The purpose was to prevent Iranian forces from reaching the target location. And then, as you can see later on the satellite images, you can see that mountain over there, right? There are a large number of huge craters appearing around it, which are clearly visible even in the satellite photos. You can really see how big those craters are. Of course, we all know that the most dazzling stars performing on the front stage are those wearing night vision goggles, right? All kinds of special forces elites. But actually, I want to tell everyone that the real main character behind the scenes of this rescue operation, or rather the biggest contributor, was actually the CIA, which, as everyone knows, has a long-standing reputation. We can sum it up in one sentence. What really determined whether this operation could succeed was the CIA, and it was the CIA that made this success possible. Turning that possibility into reality was the job of the Special Forces and the CIA. We can see that at every stage, the CIA played an irreplaceable role. From the very moment the pilot ejected from the plane, the first major problem arose. The most critical issue for the U.S. military was not how to pick up the person, but whether they could get to him before the enemy did. First and foremost, they had to maximize the time advantage. The longer the time, the more favorable it is for the rescue. Then we see that the CIA almost immediately launched a highly successful information deception campaign. They infiltrated Iranian social media and deliberately leaked certain information. They sent out false signals, including a large number of fake radio transmissions. All of this served a single purpose. That purpose was to spread the message that the pilot had already been picked up by Kurdish forces, specifically those opposed to the Iranian government, and that they were quickly moving him toward the Iraqi border. Among these, there were frequent messages like, "We need to send an important maritime package," and so on. When the Iranians saw this, they thought, this might be about that pilot. So this tactic of luring the enemy away from their base was actually very effective. Iran really did mobilize a large number of mobile units and reconnaissance forces, rushing them to the western border area. They went to carry out this tight blockade, which ended up creating a brief, but for the U.S. military, an extremely crucial window of opportunity in the real search net at the actual crash site south of Isfahan. Then the next step, which was truly the key to determining success or failure, was how the U.S. military could accurately pinpoint the colonel's location. You may have seen media reports saying that this colonel, because he was hiding in a crevice on a mountain over 2,000 meters high in order to avoid exposure, could only send out a kind of pulsed beacon signal. And what about Iran? In order to cut off their communications, they carried out intense electronic jamming in the area, essentially preventing any information from being sent out. So at this point, I saw reports saying, for example, that the CIA, or maybe it was the CIA, relied on what they called a unique and exclusive capability. In an environment with extremely weak signals, they managed to locate and pinpoint the target's position. According to the CIA director Ratcliffe, who came out and publicly stated this today, he said that the difficulty of this operation was even greater than finding a needle in a haystack. He said that the difficulty was like searching for a single grain of sand in the middle of a desert. Of course, this might be a bit of an exaggeration, but at the very least, it shows just how challenging it was for them to locate and track down this person. Pinpointing its exact location was actually extremely difficult. Then I saw a former CIA operations officer come forward and reveal some inside information to Fox News. He said that the CNA actually used a method that could be described as truly insane, called a burst, that is, a sudden explosive approach. It's this kind of communication technology. With this technology, information can be compressed and then transmitted at high speed within an extremely short period of time. As a result, it can greatly reduce the probability of being detected or interfered with, and this was proven in actual combat this time. This technology, when countering Iran's electronic jamming, indeed established an information advantage under such circumstances, completely suppressing Iran's jamming systems. As everyone knows, the pilot, in order to prove his true identity at the time, sent a crucial message to the American side. It was, "God is merciful." The original English was, "God is good." Some have translated it literally as, "God is good." It was this crucial message that convinced the U.S. military headquarters, including President Trump, that the person sending the message was indeed the colonel himself, and not an Iranian attempt at deception. Then, using this so-called burst technology that I just mentioned, he sent out the message. Only then was his identity verified, and the U.S. military's rescue operation was fully launched. As for the Iranian side, all they received from this message was a bunch of static. So they had no idea where this colonel actually was. As he said, they didn't know what information he had sent out. And not only that, the report also mentioned that the CIA had activated what they called an unconventional auxiliary recovery mechanism. When you hear this, it sounds like a particularly official term. In reality, it means that the CIA used their local networks, including informants they had infiltrated. Some potential helpers and even ordinary local civilians all provided this colonel with shelter, cover, or a lot of crucial intelligence information. This part can be said to be the most mysterious aspect of this rescue operation, because you'll notice that almost all the media outlets, almost none of them reported any details. I think this is probably because it involves a lot of sensitive matters. Or perhaps these are mechanisms that will be used again in the future. If they are reported and leaked, then if something like this happens again, right? If you want to reuse these methods, it could create obstacles for future rescue operations. However, one thing is certain, under the tremendous pressure of Iran's high bounty and intense manhunt, this wounded colonel was actually able to hold out for nearly 48 hours without being captured. He wasn't caught, right? There is definitely more to this than just his personal abilities, right? But he did indeed perform exceptionally well himself, didn't he? So after his location was determined, the CIA's role did not end. On the contrary, the CIA was almost in full control of the entire rescue operation. That was essentially the role they played. From sending the coordinates, to relaying them to the Pentagon, to the White House, then getting the operation approved, and then providing real-time intelligence updates throughout. Throughout the entire process, the CIA continuously provided dynamic information, including enemy movements, changes in threats, route adjustments, and so on. Essentially everything happening on the battlefield. In other words, it was precisely because the CIA was able to provide such timely, powerful, and comprehensive intelligence streams that their greatest contribution was making the entire rescue site, that battlefield, essentially transparent in one direction. This allowed the U.S. Special Forces to shift their operation from what was initially considered a high-risk incursion to a precisely executed mission guided by reliable intelligence. Let me give you an analogy. Originally, this kind of operation was like opening a blind box, full of unpredictable factors. Once you send people in, you have no idea what they might encounter, right? That's how it used to be done. But this time, the CIA turned this kind of blind box operation into something done under a spotlight, where you hold a scalpel and every step you take is extremely precise and clearly visible. So it became like this. Of course, to be objective, even though the US military and the CIA have made intelligence transparency, unilateral transparency, to the extreme, they still missed a small factor. That is, as everyone knows, right, the degree of hardness or softness of the sandy soil in that area near the mountains. This is something that couldn't be known in advance. In order to carry out the rescue, the US military used an abandoned agricultural airstrip in the area. Please take a look at the diagram of the plane below. That is the base they established, right? It's where the transport planes landed. They set it up almost overnight. They established a temporary military base at that abandoned agricultural airstrip. Dozens, even hundreds of planes and hundreds of commandos were all concentrated here, right? Then they engaged in extremely intense fighting with the Iraqi forces, but all of it was within the plan. The rescue operation was the only thing. What they hadn't anticipated was that when the commandos had already successfully rescued the colonel and brought him back to the base and were about to leave, they unexpectedly discovered that the landing gear of two MC-130 transport planes had sunk into the loose sand there. The landing gear was stuck and the planes couldn't move at all, making takeoff impossible. This small, unforeseen factor almost doomed the entire rescue operation, nearly turning this remote mountainous area into a killing field where over 200 Special Forces elites would have had to engage in close combat with thousands or even tens of thousands of Iraqi troops. So as everyone knows, anyone who has served in the military or even fought in a war probably understands that on the battlefield, there will always be many things you simply can't anticipate in advance, and these can completely change the course of events. Well, today there was actually a similar situation. President Trump himself came out and personally revealed some news which was extremely unexpected. What was this surprising news? Let's pause for a moment and move into today's sponsored segment, where I'd like to share two real stories with you. Both stories are related to a product from Korea that has already helped over 160,000 people worldwide improve their lung health, incurring pills from Korea. The first example is about Ms. Ju, a 59-year-old woman from Sydney, Australia. She works as a chef in a Western restaurant in Australia. Since 2016, she began experiencing issues like asthma and bronchiectasis, along with a lack of physical strength. Later, she was even diagnosed with lung cancer and underwent surgery, leaving her body extremely weak. Of course, her mood was also very low, and the results of various treatments were quite poor. In 2021, she decided to give incurring pills a try. To her surprise, she found that her sleep, physical strength, and mood all improved significantly. By the time she had taken the 8th box, she felt that her health had greatly improved, and she even resumed the full-time job she loved. There's another example from 2017 involving a Mr. Gan from Hong Kong at that time. He was diagnosed with mild emphysema and bronchiectasis, and because of this, he had long suffered from symptoms like shortness of breath and extremely poor physical strength. He had tried both Western and Chinese medicine, but nothing worked very well. For as long as 2 years, his condition kept getting worse. Later on, with the mindset of just giving it a try, he started taking incurring pills and his symptoms gradually improved. Now he has already returned to normal life and work, and he is very happy about it. He especially gave us feedback saying that he will continue taking incurring pills. So what exactly are these incurring pills? They were developed by the renowned Korean doctor, Director Seo Hyo-hee. It already has a history of over 50 years. Globally, there have been more than 160,000 clinical cases verifying its effectiveness, and it is specifically targeted at stubborn lung conditions. This includes lung nodules and especially post-COVID complications. As everyone knows, after the global COVID-19 pandemic, many people have developed lung nodules and similar issues. It also includes rhinitis, asthma, bronchitis, as well as stubborn skin allergies and atopic dermatitis, among others. All have shown very good results. The feedback has been excellent. It is made from more than 20 kinds of pure natural herbal extracts, prepared using traditional methods. But it has a core philosophy, which is that the lungs are considered the most important of the body's organs. If you cleanse and clear out your lungs, right, once they are unobstructed, your overall immunity will naturally improve, and many of your own health issues can be resolved as a result. Of course, if you have this need, you can click the link in the text area below our video or today's program, or you can directly call our customer service hotline. It's all provided there, right? There will be experts available to answer any of your questions. All right, thank you all for your support. Let's get back to the revelation President Trump made earlier. What exactly did he reveal? He said that when the U.S. military special forces arrived at their destination on a C-130 transport plane, because the transport plane was also carrying 2 helicopters, each transport plane carried 2 of those Little Bird helicopters, which are very light and compact. After unloading the helicopters, they discovered that the rotor blades of the helicopters had actually come off. In other words, the rotors weren't attached, the helicopters weren't ready to use. So what did they do? He said that these soldiers, these special forces, just got to work right there on the spot. In just over 10 minutes, they managed to reassemble the helicopters and put them into operation. In other words, even though these are super soldiers, they also have to possess the skills of super mechanics. If they didn't have these abilities, this mission probably would have failed as well. It would have fallen apart at this step. If you can't use the helicopters, there's no way you could hike up the mountain on foot to rescue the pilot, right? They went there by helicopter. That is to say, after they rescued the people, they had to wait there until the new transport planes from headquarters arrived. Since these 2 helicopters were out of commission, the more than 200 U.S.-Israeli coalition troops could have been hit by heavy ground artillery fire or attacked by large enemy forces at any moment. In that wilderness, they held out for more than 3 hours. Of course, many people might find it strange. How did they manage to hold out there for more than 3 hours when just 50 kilometers away is Isfahan, a major city in Iran where the nuclear facility is located and where there are a large number of Iranian troops stationed? So why didn't the troops stationed there arrive in time to launch a counterattack? Think about it, 50 kilometers, it takes less than an hour to drive there, right? There are actually many factors behind this, but I've uncovered a major new factor, the US military. Officially, they haven't directly stated this publicly. It might be related to the photo below. Let's have the director show it. Please take a close look. This is a satellite image showing a road. On this road, you can see that at very regular intervals, there are large craters caused by explosions. These are visible even in aerial satellite photos. You can clearly see those craters. These 2 satellite images show that on the only road from Isfahan to this makeshift temporary base, about 20 kilometers along, the US military created a total of 28 bomb craters. What you see in this photo is just a portion of them, not all. Each crater has a diameter of about 9 meters, which is a very large crater. Moreover, the locations of these craters are extremely precise. As you can see, almost every one of them hits the center of the road exactly. What is the purpose of this? It is to completely cut off this road and disable its transportation. So these precision bombings have clearly prevented the Iranian military from reaching that temporary base. This ensured that the entire evacuation operation could proceed safely. So why did they wait there for more than 3 hours, and yet the Iranian troops never arrived? In fact, this must have played a significant role. In other words, these 28 craters not only physically created a huge obstacle for the Iranian military's convoy and their encirclement efforts. Even more so, they delivered a tremendous psychological shock to the Iranian troops. What does that mean? It sent a clear signal. We can strike with such precision. If any of you dare to come, we can hit every single vehicle in your convoy without missing. I could even choose whether to hit the driver's seat or the back seat of each of your vehicles. This level of terrifying precision is simply astonishing. This capability for pinpoint strikes was probably the main reason why the already demoralized Iranian troops did not arrive at this temporary base in time to launch an assault. Moreover, in fact, we saw that the Iranian troops not only deployed military vehicles, but they even sent disguised ambulances in an attempt to carry out searches. Take a look at this scene. What's shown here is actually an ambulance, and there's even a cross, a red cross, right? But even so, after being identified by the US military, it was destroyed on the spot. In other words, this entire rescue operation, as you can see, was on a very large scale. It involved the lives and safety of hundreds of US soldiers, as well as massive military assets worth tens of billions of dollars, over 100 aircraft, more than 150 planes in total. However, no one could have imagined that such an epic rescue operation was actually forced into action by a fierce ghost in the White House. This afternoon at the White House press briefing, President Trump himself was the first to reveal what can only be described as a truly astonishing scoop. He said that after the F-15 was hit, didn't the 2 crew members eject and escape? The first crew member was rescued by the U.S. military just a few hours later that same day. Then the second crew member, this colonel, right? He hid alone in the mountains for more than 24 to 48 hours. His location was highly classified. At that time, the U.S. military was carrying out a high-risk special rescue operation. That is, the CIA wasn't just providing intelligence. They started carrying out this deception, right? They were trying to fool the Iranians. Then the special forces immediately drew up a plan. Their original plan was to launch a surprise attack that very night to extract this person. Then Trump revealed this information, saying that at the time, Iran had no idea that a second pilot was missing. So he said that originally the U.S. military's rescue operation was extremely secret. No one knew about it. But unexpectedly on Friday, April 3rd, an unbelievable leak occurred. He said that a media outlet, of course, Trump did not specify exactly which media outlet it was. He just said that there was such a media outlet that actually published an article publicly revealing for the first time that the second F-15 crew member was still missing and unaccounted for. And before this information had always been considered highly classified military intelligence. In other words, the person had not yet been rescued. You went ahead and reported this information, allowing Iran to find out immediately, precisely because this insider leaked the intelligence to the media. The media, being unscrupulous, directly exposed it, which led the Iranian authorities to immediately learn that there was actually a second U.S. pilot and that this second person had not yet been rescued and was still inside Iran. They immediately issued a huge reward, right? They started a manhunt and deployed a large number of military personnel to begin searching. It can be said that this directly and seriously endangered the ongoing rescue operation and the safety of the special forces. So, precisely because of this, Trump was extremely furious. He harshly criticized the leaker, calling them a sick person. He said that this person almost ruined our entire epic rescue operation. Moreover, Trump even publicly stated that his team would directly contact the media company that published this article. On the grounds of endangering national security, they would demand that the company hand over the true identity of the leaker. He said that if the person who published the article couldn't hand over the name of the leaker, then that journalist would have to go to jail. In Trump's own words, give it up or go to jail. Either surrender and comply with our demands, right? Either hand over this person or you go to jail. In other words, this rescue operation was originally something that could have been quietly and swiftly accomplished with just 20 or 30 people and a few planes. But after being exposed by this insider, the operation was forced to escalate, because once it was exposed, it turned into a huge operation, right? Everything became a global event, broadcast live 24/7. And in this kind of public opinion environment, they had no choice but to launch a campaign-scale, epic-level rescue relying on their own hard power. They absolutely had to get the person out. Doing it quietly was no longer an option. The difficulty of the operation was suddenly magnified many times over. So in my view, this leaker, his motive is actually very simple. Whether or not the pilot could be rescued was actually not important, nor did it matter if more U.S. Special Forces soldiers lost their lives because of it. What mattered was that he believed Trump absolutely could not be allowed to succeed. As long as he could trip Trump up, sabotage him, and make Trump mess things up, that was enough. Even if it meant directly handing a knife to the Mullah regime in this way, this is basically handing them a knife, stabbing the U.S. military and Trump in the back, he thought it was worth it, even if it meant more American soldiers losing their lives on the battlefield. You just feel like, well, that's the kind of person he is. That kind of extreme hatred toward Trump, such a deeply twisted and dark mentality, only someone like that could do something like this. This really isn't just targeting Trump. By taking such actions, what you're endangering is the lives of all American soldiers. You are betraying the major national security interests of the United States. It's like a lot of people can't even tell the difference anymore. Their personal hatred toward Trump is so great that they're willing to put it far above the interests of the country and above the safety and lives of their own country's military.